Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on, good question, February 15th, 2026 at approximately 8 p.m. PST. Now, I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my own day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the same philosophies I guide virtually every decision I make by. With this in mind, I know these tools will work for you because they continue to work for me and have literally worked for thousands of other people over the years with varying degrees of success, depending on their own personal efforts. Now, before we get into it, I do want to tip my hat to Storm, our primary moderator in the background. He's the one that keeps tech running. And rest assured, with my influences, that's a challenge. Then we have LA Moon, and she is our primary moderator in the chat room. And she's there to make sure that, the conversation keeps going, as well as she does the most important thing, in my eyes. She keeps a very close tabs on my own health. So, sorry guys, you don't get to watch me have a heart attack while she's on watch. Because fortunately, when she warns me about something, most of the time I respond to it with something other than the bird. Now, the reality is that the moderators are there to make sure this place stays safe for virtually everybody. Okay, so you find yourself outside the chat room, unable to communicate. One of two things happen. Either you overlooked the guidelines at the top of the chat room, or you ended up having a stroke. And I hope it's not the latter. I tried that; it doesn't work well. It's a lot more inconvenient, by the way, than what a heart attack is. But with that in mind, we have Eternity Eternally in the house with the gold. How you doing, Eternity? Glad you could join us. Hopefully things are going well on your end. And then we have Kitty Cattywack is in with Silver. How you doing, Kitty? Your life has got to be hectic. I'm certain of it. And there we have Kira Ava, another one of our moderators, come in to make certain that things are kept going. Now, of course, as you can tell, each of the moderators seems to fill an individual niche. In Kira's case, on top of everything else, she also keeps an eye out for questions that I miss. And the funny part about it is she's 100% blind and sees more than most of the people I know that actually have both eyes working, myself included. Now, I picked a rather different kind of topic today because I got thinking about things, which is usually a dangerous idea. But I looked at it and went, okay, retirement, and we're looking at the spiritual side of things. And then I went, retirement is kind of like exile. Well, why? As you get older, either people pass away, as my dad used to put it, the older he got, the more funerals he attended and the less birthday parties. Okay. Now, truth be told, he didn't attend that many birthday parties. But boy, did he ever end up attending a lot of funerals. So the long and the short of it, you all drift away. As you get older, life changes people, and they drift away on their own lines. So by the time you hit retirement, you're down to a handful of people that you spend any time talking to. Now, I strongly encourage you, especially with me being where I'm standing, I strongly encourage you to reestablish what connections you can with people, because as you get older, it gets to be more complicated to do that. Operation Shutdown, you are in with the bronze. How you doing? Glad you could join us. Well, you've got all this separation happening. Okay. And then when you start looking, and I'll go back over the details in a little bit, but then you take a look at exile. You're forced out of familiar territory. You have to leave all your family behind, all your friends, and you're forced to start over somewhere completely new. Okay, this is why I say retirement and exile are pretty much the same thing. Here's another neat little similarity. The biggest complaint I hear from people, okay, the biggest complaint I hear from retirees is, how did I ever get anything done before I retired? And the biggest complaint that exiles make is, how did I ever get anything done before I was exiled? Because now my day is full trying to catch up with things, trying to keep ahead. Okay. This is one of those things when you look in the mirror and you go, okay, what went sideways and why? Well, what went sideways is you, somewhere along the line, myself included, put everything on hold, tried living for other people, and all of a sudden those other people are gone. Okay. And now you got to figure out how to live for you. Hopefully you've got a retirement that's a little better than mine. I just literally made contact with a guy I knew 30 years ago, and the connection that was there is definitively gone. Okay, it's unfortunate, but it happens. I could go on to a whole list, but that's kind of like with the self-help books I see so many people writing. And they write 15, 20 pages of self-help, of usable self-help techniques. And then they spend anywhere from 50 to 200 pages telling you about other people that were successful. Okay, I can give you all kinds of quotes of people that retired and managed to make a go of things. But that won't do you a bit of good if you don't figure out how to do things now. Because I will tell you, if you don't figure it out beforehand, okay, yeah, LA goes, I'm actually busier during retirement. Now I'm just tired. Yeah, I'm having fun lately. The last week, I've been sleeping only between 2 and 6 hours a night. In 3 to 4 runs at it. I don't mean wake up, you go to bed, you wake up, go to the washroom, go back to bed. I mean, wake up for 4 or 5 hours, pass out again for a couple hours, then you wake up again, and the routine continues. I'd like to get 4 hours combined, back to back. That'd be great. Doesn't happen very often. But as you're sitting there, whatever stage your life is in, if you're already retired, hey, give yourself a pat on the back. You survived a lot longer than most people. Because sad to say, in today's world, most people don't make it to retirement. Granted, I'm a bit of a rarity. I've died more often than most. Not only have I died more often than anybody I've ever heard of, but I also got to manage and have this quantified. I also managed to have 2 actual birthdays, okay, that are trackable by both police analysts and astrologers, which is always fun. Okay, but when you're looking at your retirement, what are you going to do if you reached retirement? Now we're working backwards. You're now at a point and you're overloaded, but you don't have that circle in all likelihood. Now, some of you have a circle, and much like some people I know, I'm a firm believer that quality is way more important than quantity. Okay, I certainly have found some people. I haven't found anybody close to my age. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's a couple of people close to my age, but I haven't found anybody close to my age that I can actually connect with, at least not locally. Okay, so you remember that thing I mentioned about fighting depression most of my life? Well, I'm retired now. I don't have time to be depressed. This is why I'm doing my level best to alter that path. Now, I did tell my wife behind me here that I will find a way to live, okay, instead of just killing time. Got a few other people on the line now that I'd rather kill instead of time. But oh, wait a minute, that was wrong. See, this is what I mean by I should really think before I speak. But my mouth goes into gear and my brain goes on hold. I think that's been the case in most of my life. But when we look at retirement, now, hopefully you people listening either are retired yourself or know more people that are retired than you do that are exiled. Okay. In today's world, especially in the more technologically advanced worlds, societies, people don't get exiled. Not by definitive declaration. Okay. It's like I tell people, I make everybody I meet happy. Some of them by showing up, most of them by leaving. Because in case you couldn't tell, I happen to be, politely put, a bit opinionated. Okay, you get to figure that out. Now, I have become, in my retirement, I have literally become a very bitter, and I hate to put it this way, but I've become a very bitter old man with the way people are treating each other. And much more directly, the way I've been being treated. Oddly, I've been being treated by creditors and strangers better than by my own bloodline siblings. And I'm sure they're going to really love that. They may listen to this, I don't know. And at this point, it reached the point I don't really care. When you're looking at retirement at this point, if you take a look backwards, because you can't do a thing about things before. There was a show out, and I forget exactly, I can see the two people. There was a movie out about 30 years ago called The Bucket List, about two senior citizens that went, these are all the things I really wish I had done. Now, I will tell you, you're not able, you can't do anything about getting things done beforehand. Okay, like if you intended on becoming a doctor by the time you were 25, and you're now in your 60s, you're not becoming a doctor by the time you're 25. However, you can still become a doctor. I wouldn't hold my breath on it. The oldest one I found, I worked with a client that was 52 when she told me she had desired to become a doctor. Well, I worked with her and she did all the work, but she became a doctor at 60 years old. So it can be done, but take a look at the things you desire to do. Some of them you're no longer going to be able to. In my case, if I had ever intended on becoming a long distance runner, that went the way of the dodo bird when I was 12. Okay, because that's when I tore my leg apart. And I'm not about to try and become a long distance runner now. That would look neat. 1 step, 2 step, 3 step floor. And I'd still have to be carrying a cane to do it. So the running thing is just not an option at this point. But put a list together. And yes, we go back to that silly thing that I call the list method. It works. But if you're retired, put that list together and see what is still feasible to do. If you're not retired yet, start planning for it. And I don't mean putting away great big pouch of money. Okay, money is great, but I'll tell you, it does not buy happiness. Although I will tell you, it does help you look for it in a lot more places. If you're looking at exile, and we can liken exile to suddenly becoming homeless. All of a sudden, everything you knew is gone. You don't have any of your belongings. But I will tell you, I find people on the street or people in low-tech communities are happier on the whole than the people that have all this stuff around them. The Egyptians figured it out. They thought they could take it with them too. Okay, but the reality is you can't. When you start looking at retirement, you've got to look retirement, downsizing. Maybe you just can't keep the house up anymore. And you've now got to start getting rid of some of the paraphernalia. I've still got things from my childhood that I'm hanging on to. I should do that one day. But, oh, sorry, I was just looking at a stack of boxes up above me here of things from my childhood. But here's the kicker. When you're looking at retirement, you have the choice as to whether you're going to be happy, whether you're going to be busy, or whether you're going to sit on your backside and stare at the idiot box. Now, the reality is, you may be one of these people that has no physical option but to stay seated. This is not a slight against you. Okay? Don't take it that way if you can avoid it. Maybe you are one of these people that is just flat out lazy. That's my subtle side coming out. Although I'm actually really subtle where it comes to some things. I got a friend who his girlfriend literally asked him, well, and I'll use the polite term, did these pants make me look overweight? He never blinked. He looks at her and goes, no, you're overweight anyway. But the reality of it is, as an individual, you're heading for retirement or you're already there. Okay? Maybe you're living in a world and you're already on the edge of losing your home because finances have not been nice. Well, unfortunately, how you got to where you are is not something we can do anything with. And in all fairness, how you got there is almost irrelevant. What does matter is what you do with it now. Now, if you're on the street, I cannot speak from experience on that one this lifetime. Okay? Because this lifetime I've been fortunate. I played both ends against the middle my entire life and managed to avoid being homeless. Didn't say I avoided being homely. But, if you are already in trouble, there are ways of turning things around. Now, I can tell you wholeheartedly, I am no financial advisor from the standpoint of I've taken any sort of training, but I can tell you I have guided people through the intricacies of avoiding bankruptcy. I've guided them through dealing with overloaded financial expectations and underwhelming financial income. This I can do. I can't tell you how to live on the street. I can tell you I've avoided it almost as much as I've avoided dealing with vertical bar scene. The nice part about it is I take a look at this and I go, okay, what do we do from here? Well, first and foremost, that circle of friends you've got, okay, no matter how small it is, do your best to put it together. Okay, to pull it together, to hold that friendship together. Because I'll tell you, decades down the road, you're going to be missing it. And we have Flubber Lane. How you doing, Flubber? Glad you could join us. Now, again, guys, if you have a question, even if it's something that you think may be a silly question, rest assured, somebody out there that's either in the chat room now or looking at the stream later, somebody out there's got the same question. They've got the same problem. Well, I don't want to sound silly. Well, if you don't want to sound silly, don't place your question trying to sound like Donald Duck. Or Marvin the Martian, for that matter. Okay. But the reality of it is, the reality of it is, when you start putting things together and go, this is what I desire, okay, you can still make a go of it. Now, I had a client that was living on the street with multiple personality disorder. Okay. And when I got a hold of her, she was very depressed about it. And bear in mind, I fight depression my entire life. Right. I really have, in spite of the way I talk. Okay, there ain't no way that I was really good English. But now the reality of it is there is nobody on this planet literally that as far as I'm aware can literally look at the world the way I do. It's physically impossible. And that one I'm just not getting into right now. But I will tell you, this last that had a multiple personality. The doctors had given up on her. She was on the street with no hope and no guidance until she got to me. In a period of approximately a year. Now, she had to do the work, okay? But in the period of approximately a year, she turned around and managed to get off the street, living on social service and living on social assistance in subsidized housing with a volunteer job. No longer was she stealing from anybody that she walked by. No longer was she blowing up cars because she was having a bad day. She was living a normal life. I'll use the term normal a little loosely. I did not have time to help get her completely reamalgamated, but I did get a chance to help her put all three of her actual clinical personalities to work. Okay, so much as she still had three personalities, at least she also had three lives. Three different life paths that she was following. We managed to get her sorted around. Where it comes to retirement, you're working right now. You got your day full of work shift. You got your day full of other people telling you, show up for work at this time, stay here, do this job, and at this time, go home. So half your day, well, at least a third of your day is dictated by somebody else. Another sixth of the day is dictated by you preparing to be told by somebody else what to do. As in, you work 8 hours, but you spend an hour and a half, 2 hours getting ready for work, and another hour and a half to 2 hours after work winding down. So half your day is dictated by somebody else. Okay, when you retire, all of a sudden all that organization goes away and falls in your lap. Now, the reality of it is the same thing happens to those of you that are struggling to keep your head above water and find yourself without a home. Okay, the same thing happens. What do you do with it? All of a sudden, this organized part of your life is completely scrambled. Well, here's what you do about it. Before that happens, if at all possible, before it happens, turn around and start dictating how your life is going to unfold. Now, get this. I'm 63. I talk about building an empire. Only it's not just talk. But here's where the inspiration came from. There was a chap, I'm sure you've heard of him, chap by the name of Colonel Sanders. Some of you younger folk may not know who that is. You may only know the company as Kentucky Fried Chicken or KFC. Okay, but this man, my recollection says that Colonel Sanders at 65 started his first chicken stand. 3 or 4 months after he started, and now I don't know what he called it, but 3 or 4 months after he started it, he closed the door because his staff wouldn't do exactly what he said. Okay, then a month after that, he reopened it. Today, he's a household name. Now, I'm 63. Sadly, I started looking at this when I was 55. Okay, and then life happened and depression really took hold. But I'm 63. I'm in the process of laying out and building an empire, a network, an arc where people can actually heal. Okay, no more of this garbage that, and that's probably the wrong word. Okay, if you're seeing a doctor and it's working for you, stay in contact. The odds are they know how to do it. They know more than you do. Okay, what I'm building is a way to work in tandem with doctors and the psychologists and the career planners work in tandem with all of them and give you the tool they're missing giving you. We know you're missing it because you're still looking for directions. Okay, rest assured, if you weren't looking for directions, you wouldn't be on this channel. Because I'm telling you, I am not the be-all and end-all. I've got brothers that think they are. I'm sure some of you guys have brothers that think they are, or sisters. But the way I look at it, almost anything I do, you can do. Okay? Well, we'll just put it blunt on the table. I'm the only one allowed to kiss my wife. Okay? Now, everybody can, all of you can accomplish whatever you set your heart to. What you may be lacking is not motivation. It's not direction. It's a question of discipline. And that I can show you how to develop. Okay? But it is my intention to build a network big enough that anybody out there can be helped, either by being on the stream or by talking to one of you guys. Okay? And this is why I say, if you know somebody that's in trouble, that's having trouble getting focused, absolutely. Now, we're not going to go the route of what I found out that focus actually means. Okay? But here's one for you, and I'm not even going to do anything wrong. Okay? You get to fill in the blanks. But if somebody tells you to focus, what they usually are telling you to do is think about it. Concentrate on what you're doing. Pay attention to what I'm telling you. Okay? I had an ex-girlfriend. Well, I have an ex-girlfriend. Rest assured, she's not there anymore. Jeff Garvey, how you doing? Actually, I think I saw you earlier. But that was in the other show. Anyway, she turned around and said, no, just tell somebody to focus. But focus is now an acronym. Now, we know the modern world, people speak in acronyms. I literally hear people go LOL. Okay? And, when I was growing up, we only had a few of them. You had FUBAR, you had SNAFU, you had ASAP, or we had PDQ. And most of you won't know what those are. But the one that my ex-girlfriend gave me was focus. Okay? It is an acronym. Okay? I was debating whether to tell you what the acronym was. But I figure with today's computer world, you might be able to find it. This said, if you're looking at ending up either homeless or retired, and there's a real similarity between the two. Here we are. Here we go. Jeff goes, I was walking across the room, not touching the remote, not touching. The remote was not touching the remote was watching surfing. Oh, there you go. I see it. Just all of a sudden pops up and says, oh, by the way, Jeff, we're on air. I told you I have a weird effect on computers. The thing you have to look at, well, you don't have to. You got free will. You got free choice. Okay? In a nutshell, and this is going to throw people for a loop. Okay? Whoever you call God, whoever you call your spiritual deity, whatever, the general consensus seems to be, number one, you were given free will, free choice, you have the capacity to do what you will, and and you can move forward. But no God is coming down to straighten your life out. That's yours. Because the reality is, you've got the free will to do it. You may not have the know-how. Okay? But if you're looking at retiring, make certain that you start planning what you would like to do. Not just with your spare time, but what you would like to do in general. Okay? Like Kira and I are already, even though we are literally thousands in debt, figured out how to get out of it. It'll take us about a decade, assuming I can't get the other side turned around. The reality is from your standpoint, okay, pick a goal. Now, Kira and I have already discussed taking a long cruise. It's on our list of things to do. Well, the reality of it is, I get lost in my own neighborhood. Okay, and she's 100% blind. There is nothing stopping us from going except our own decision not to. And of course, I've got a stubborn streak that pretty much guarantees if I don't want to do it, it's not happening. I mean, heck, doctors told me I was dead again, and I didn't agree with them. Now, the reality is, you make the decision what you're doing. If you're on the verge of ending up on the street, start doing the research now. And what I mean by that is get in touch with the agencies and find out what you have to do if you end up on the street. And this is one of those few times where I will tell you, use the word if and say, not its replacement. Okay, if you end up on the street. I wrote a poem years ago called Forewarned is Forearmed. I'm telling you, if you think you're in danger of possibly ending up on the street, or you figure you're getting near to retirement age, this is not a question of, is it possible? It's a question of preparing yourself just in case. Now, most of you, if you're driving, as far as I'm aware, you have to have auto insurance, no matter what country you're in. Okay, but you pay auto insurance, medical insurance, life insurance to cover the cost if something goes wrong. Now, I will guarantee you will die at some point. Okay, and it's just a question of how many times. No, I think that's actually not a real question. Usually people die once and that's where it ends. But, I just had to be different. But when you take a look at things, okay, it is absolutely critical. You start, when I talk about planning for your retirement, most people make the mistake of going, that's the money you're planning for. It is not just the money. If your country right now is embroiled in war, whether it was something started by your country, or some other genius decided, hey, let's go pick a fight with this small group of people, and you find yourself literally running for your life, you're now in exile. If your apartment building burns down, through no fault of anybody's, really, it just happens, and you find yourself on the street, this is also a form of exile. And again, it's a possibility that it is best you look into and see what options are there. Where do you go? What do you do with it? When I was growing up, my parents taught us how to deal with fire. Okay, not because they wanted the house to burn down, although I swear that was sometimes one of the options. My dad had a brilliant idea. He taught all of us how to play with fire. Okay, I mean, heck, our method of cutting the lawn was Dad would put the soakers out around the house, and then he'd light the lawn on fire. Okay, well, none of us grew up to be pyromaniacs. None of us grew up lighting fires haphazardly. Yet, not one of us fears fire. Okay, now the neat part about it is I had a fire chief actually tell me point blank when he was doing the research, we had a fire that, according to the fire chief, I literally turned around because there was no way it could have turned around. Okay, we had the same problem with hurricane down in Florida a number of years ago. It can be done. Jeff is going, I taught myself with magnifying glass. What is this?
Over fire. He's talking about.
Oh, I taught myself with magnifying glass. Yeah. My dad went a little odd. He decided to show us how gasoline explodes. But when we were growing up, and I'll tell you, if there's a website I do recommend you go to, If you want to see something that is dark side funny, go to darwinawards.com. Now, I do caution you, it tells you about actions people had because they were just downright stupid. We had an idea when we were growing up. The stupid people didn't live through it. We didn't have all the warning labels. Okay? Because the dumb ones didn't survive. So the live ones learned by watching. Where it comes to retirement, if I'd have really looked at what I had seen coming, okay, I wouldn't be in the mess I'm in right now. Yeah, LA goes, I've lost 2 houses to fire. It's best to understand what to do about such things. Oh yeah, I remember when I was married. When I was married to my first wife, we're laying in bed. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and all I get is bang, 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 bang on the window. I says, keep your pants on. I'm coming. So the guy yells out. He says, your house is on fire. I says, fine. I'll put my pants on. So I rolled. I got out of bed right away. I got out of bed right away, and I shook my wife's shoulder. I said, dear, you might want to get up. Why? What time is it? I said, it's about 3 o'clock in the morning. Why do I want to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning? Right? I says, well, the house is on fire. I'll tell you, she came out of the bed in one heck of a hurry. Okay, so we get outside, and the cop that woke us up, he and I are containing the fire while the fire truck's coming. And he said, and I looked at him, I says, you know what really ticks me off about this? He says, somebody lit your house on fire while you were in it? I says, no. He said, what do you mean, no? I said, well, it's not technically my house. I'm renting. He says, then what's bothering you? I says, whoever the genius was that lit my house on fire didn't tell me about it ahead of time so I could get the wieners out of the freezer. And he looks at me and goes, you're worried about wieners in the middle of a house fire. I said, it's a waste of a perfectly good fire. But then I look at life a little different. Now, whoa, this is my two. How you doing? I don't think I've seen you in here before, but welcome aboard. Now, to be honest with you, I have never heard of the thing called the Getty theory. Unless you call Getty me this or Getty me that. But I don't know if that's the theory you're talking about or just a request. But one of the things I look at is that you have to take, I fight depression my entire life. And yet I've got a mouth on me that, frankly, you might wonder whether I actually even know what depression is. I do think that there's a couple of shirts I should get on the line. Not the least of which is one that literally says, and I care why. I get so many people telling me all the bad things going on. I tune most of them out because, frankly, there are way more good things going on. I look at Colonel Sanders at 65. I don't know what he did before, but he quit what he was doing and opened his own chicken stand. The reality of it is this. He decided he was building a chicken stand. I don't know what he thought he was going to build. Okay. And you take Steve Jobs. He went, yes, we've got IBM computers, but you guys require a different computer. Okay. Now, that said, I've got to develop a combination of these attitudes. Okay. Because I look at a staggering number of self-help books. And they are all essentially the same. And I did something a little different. I wrote one that tells you why you don't want to do it in the first place. In all fairness, I've written 4 of the self-help. But not only do I tell you how to do it, I tell you why you probably won't want to. Okay, because my rationality is simple. If I tell you what your big and most likely reason for not doing it is, then maybe you'll do it just in spite. Okay, the other thing I found is that when the other books, what they do is they go, here's 300 pages of people that were successful. I'm telling you, open the flaming door and look out. You'll see people that are successful, that have their life in order on the surface. Most of those millionaires you see have a brilliant situation. They really do. Oh, I own a Lamborghini and a Lotus. They are up to their eyeballs in payments. Okay. You know why? You know why so many people? Why the banks actually let people drive park at home? Their parking lot isn't big enough. Like I'm looking at this, the number of times that I have seen accidents or natural disasters that people are not prepared for. Retirement is natural, but it is not a disaster. I at 63 look forward to life more than I ever did when I was 40. Quite honestly, when I was 40, I was looking for any way to get off the planet without committing suicide. I had a friend of mine, right, that turned around, and I missed coffee with him for 3 days. He phones up a mutual friend and goes, I'm really worried about Keith. I think he's suicidal. And the other friend looks at him and goes, God, I hope not. And so the one says, yeah, I don't want him to die. And she goes, no, you don't get it. If Keith's suicidal, he's taking half the city with him. Well, they told me, like everybody told me growing up, number one, it's lonely at the top. Okay. So I figure if it's lonely at the top, it's and then other people said, no matter what you do, you're on your own. So if it's lonely at the top, take the people around you, and if you can help them get a leg up, do so. Maybe you won't be so lonely because you got so many people up there. Of course, in my case, I was certain I was going to hell. So I figured, well, if I'm going to die, I'll take as many people with me as I can. Then I'll be too busy saying hi to ever worry about the situation I'm in. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I was just looking at
yeah.
conversation going on there in the shop.
Yeah.
Keith,
I didn't do it.
Since you mentioned the books that you have available, would you mind just giving our viewers a reminder as to where they can find them and get a hold of you?
That would make sense. Number one, if you go to the link at the top of the stream at buymeacoffee.com/innervoiceJ, you'll find all of the books that I've written. I'll save one. Okay, but I've got all of them in stock. Now, that said, okay, you'll find the 4 self-help books that are out. I'm in the middle. I've started writing a 5th one, 2 novels, 2 children's books, and an alien reference manual. Plus, you'll find out how to get a hold of me directly, as well as to get my free monthly magazine called Positive Perspectives. Okay, and the reality is, I look at the way I wrote the books, and I wrote them for the self-help ones for a simple reason. You may not have the tools. If you're still looking for direction, the answer is you don't have the tools yet. So what I did was go, here's the simple tools that I personally am using. And if you look back in my older videos, you'll see how much clutter used to be here. So when I talk about decluttering things, I'm talking about getting rid of stuff you don't require and how that actually affects the way your world is going. And I've just been showing here, we are down to 15 minutes. Yeah, I did notice that though. LA had mentioned she had lost her house twice to fire. And then Storm pipes up and goes, yep. And now she's married to a retired firefighter. One of the, I don't worry about fire now. That's the funny thing. I never did worry about fire, which, concerns some people. But then you got to remember, I grew up with my dad lighting the lawn on fire in order to cut the lawn. And we had an indoor fireplace that unfortunately regularly spitfire burning logs out in the middle of the room. So we learned very quickly how to pick them back up and put them away. And then you stand there looking at the fire going, bad fire, stay.
Yeah.
But even back in 2003 here in Kelowna, we had one heck of a clam bake. We had 100, at the time, our population was 100,000 people. We evacuated 33,000 of them. Okay. And the people that handled it were the ones that already had a head on things when they were going, I'm struggling to survive, so I got to make sure I know what I'm doing. They had, they never bothered with the idea of, oh, you don't have as much money as I do. They looked at it and went, I've got a couch. Pull up a stump and we'll get you back to your home, assuming it survives. Yeah, pretty much, Ellie. The reality of it is this. Retirement is, I'll put it to you this way. I am recently retired, as in I got forced into it 5 years ago now. Okay. This is 4 years. But in any event, I used to look at life as I'm done. I just want out. Even when I first got together with my wife, I told her I'm putting in time. And as soon as I can get out of this place, I'm done. Well, this last cardiac run I had, I come out of it going, I'm going to find a way to live. And I can tell you now, okay, however old you are, whether you're already retired or you're simply in the latter part of your working life, or for that matter, maybe you're just getting started going, I don't want to work anymore. And I tell you, when I hear people go, I'm feeling sad, so I can't work today. Tell you, you can feel sad on your own time. Get your tail to work. And I know you're not supposed to say that, but I'll tell you, you'll feel a lot sadder if you don't have a roof over your head. Or as you get older, the people that you've been connected with, that you've gone for coffee with, that you sat down and talked to, okay, when they start keeling over, you're going to be sad. And there's nothing wrong with it. However, buying into it can be a bit of a problem. One of the things I look at is this. Whatever your state of the world is right now, okay, I am doing what I can to show people what I'm doing to take my life from, oh, my life sucks and I want nothing to do with these people anymore. Okay. 2, okay, my life is challenging. Absolutely. But this young lass behind me gives me a lot of focus. Okay. And if you got the right partner, they won't yell at you because you did something wrong. Okay. I mean, I talked to somebody the other day, it was priceless. His relationship was falling apart because of something he did. But you're going to love what he did. He come into the house and his common law wife is running up and down the hall going, help, I need a fire extinguisher. I need a fire extinguisher. This is a woman that knew nothing about fire, obviously. Right? He steps into their house and looks at it, and the bedroom, the bed itself is on fire. And he looks at the sink. There's a pot of water in the sink. Well, the guy grabs hold of the pot of water and turns it upside down on the bed. For some weird reason, that amount of water, the fire didn't survive. Well, she tore a strip off him for making the bed wet. Now, I'm not sure, but I'm thinking somebody had their priorities wrong. I know that Kira would be mad if I made the bed wet at night too, but...
That's a completely different topic. We're not going there.
Just had to throw that out there. Remember that thing I said about like shows back? I mentioned to people, there's that thing in most people's head that says, oh, you shouldn't say that. Well, mine's a little broken. Mine waits until after I say and goes, you really shouldn't have said that. Okay. Retirement can be trying, but it can be trying by you trying this and trying that. Okay. I do recommend against what they call jaywalking. Of course, what the cops call jaywalking and what I call jaywalking are two very different things. I watch squirrels jaywalk. They run halfway across the road and then turn around and run back. Okay, that's jaywalking. Okay, or I've seen them where they run all the way across the road and then run halfway back and stop on the line. This is jaywalking, not crossing the street. But what we have to realize is whatever stage of life you're in, start planning to make sure you've got things to do when you do retire, or if you're in danger of being on the road because your finances are so far out of sync, you don't know how to get a hold of them. Okay, I'm telling you right now, I've been bankrupt twice. Okay, I've only been retired once. My father got down to a fine art. He retired 4 times before he died at 81. Okay, he kept getting bored and going and finding another job. Okay, I have a problem with that. It's not that I don't get bored. It's that I don't want to leave the house. And that makes it tricky to find a job. Even more so because I don't want to talk to people. I don't mind the walls though. Uh-oh. I'm just looking. Hey, Sam, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Sam is another one of our moderators. Yeah, Sam goes, Keith, we are living in a time where up is down and right is wrong. Go figure. Somebody overshook our snowball. Yeah. I mean, realistically, about 3 weeks ago, I think it was Sweden, had a snowfall with snowballs the size of the size of a VW Bug, of a compact. Now this was caught on many different videos. Okay, so I'm looking at it going, we've had a beautiful winter here, and people say, oh, I love the weather. I'm like, you have a day where you got weather, it's a good day. I find I wake up and my heart's still beating. It's a good start. I like the way I saw one person put it. Where are we here? Uh-oh. That's terrible. Kira goes, hi, Samo, this is so true. What am I?
Oh, sorry, what an image typo.
What an image, though. I've always loved the idea of living inside my own snow globe, just not this one. I like the way it's put there. And that's the one difference there, Sam. Sam's going, everything's backwards. We're doomed. No, we're not. But it is time for people to realize God's not coming down to straighten your life out. He gave you free will and free agency and then told you go forth. It's not he doesn't care. It's he cares enough to say, I gave you the free will and the knowledge to do it. He gave a piece of the truth to every one of the religions out there and told everybody, if you desire to survive and to thrive, get along. Okay, retirees, those of you that are getting ready to retire or figure you're being forced into it, get in touch with people that are still working. Okay, find a commonality between you so you've got something to work with. And I will tell you, one hobby I've found 2 hobbies that literally millions of people around the world from all ages will play. One is chess. Okay. The other is Dungeons and Dragons or any variation thereof. The players in these are anywhere from 8 to 80 years old or beyond. Okay. But find people to connect with. Now, and this is the same as if you're moving on, if you're finding you're on the street.
We're at 5 minutes.
Yeah. Now, tomorrow, we are going to be, tomorrow at 8 p.m. tomorrow night, we're going to be looking at the art of effective bill payment. And then on Tuesday, we're going to look at the art of personal attire, setting your own image. And we're going to talk about how you can do that on what you've got. Okay, with that in mind, I do want to say thank you so very much for sharing your time with us tonight. I really do appreciate it. I do look forward to seeing you again tomorrow starting at 4 p.m. in a day in the office, and at 8 p.m. and both of these are Pacific at 8 p.m. For positive perceptions. Okay. Until then, though, I do, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. Really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you again. And that said, until we do meet again, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.